The main reason why I lost that deal with Kevin Hart is because I couldn't sustain the business because I wasn't monetizing my users. I have 46,000 users and I was literally making like $1,000 in revenue off of that per month. But now if imagine I had, converted 10% of those to paying customers at, let's just say $20 a month, you're talking about, $18,000 in revenue. That would have sustained the business. I could have continued and probably finished off the deal with Kevin. When I meet founders, we've launched 300 plus of these startups at this point. The one connective tissue among most of them that I see really commonly is they don't care about sales. They don't care about monetization. They're focused on creating a product that, they're thinking about it like a lottery where, hey, I'm going to make this viral product and post it online and we're all going to get rich. I'm going to get a bunch of investment, millions of users. And then it doesn't happen. And so what I tell them is you guys got to think about these 4 phases of the business. So product, which is phase 1, marketing, identifying the ideal customer profile, who you're going to sell to in phase 2, sales or monetization in phase 3, and then virality in phase 4. So we do virality actually last in the app launch process. Sales is the foundation of business. There is no product without revenue coming in.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, we've got a killer guest. Jonathan Maxim. He's a 2-time tech founder, a legit growth marketing expert, and the CEO of Viral App Launch, the crew that literally guarantees app founders 10,000 new users and a slate of investor intros. This guy's not guessing. He's run growth on over 300 app campaigns for brands like TikTok, Triller, Universal Music Group, Monster Energy, you name it. If you're building anything in tech, SaaS, or apps, this episode is a playbook, how to actually get users, how not to get destroyed by bad economics, and how to build something investors take seriously. Welcome to the show, Jonathan.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, John.
Hey, this is going to be a lot of fun. So I've worked with tons of AI and tech founders and software as a service founders. The sales machine. We built an enterprise level sales system. So how did you get started in this journey? You've got a unique journey. Everyone's got a unique journey to where now you're running think tanks and brainstorming and masterminds and scaling, helping companies scale with their ideas.
Yeah, the long and short of it is I took a swing in tech. I made a fitness rewards app in 2014. I got introduced to Kevin Hart in 2016 for an investment. I worked that deal right up to the finish line and I had 46,000 users on the app. It was a running app, and Kevin ended up not being able to endorse it because he was already endorsing Nike Run at the time. And so that deal fell apart. My company ended up falling apart. And then another investment, Mark Cuban's health venture firm, also backed out. They were a contingent investor on Kevin investing. And so I had what looked like an awesome company. It was featured in Forbes, Inc., Entrepreneur, literally star-studded startup and, 50,000 users on the platform. But I made some really key mistakes that I wouldn't have made now. And I can definitely help founders avoid those potholes I stepped in. But I had a real big shot at greatness and it was a swing and a miss. And I didn't have the runway to continue after that. And so that taught me some hard lessons about being a tech founder, about sales specifically. I think sales is something a lot of tech founders are not just not trained in, but don't have an appreciation for. And it's why a lot of tech startups fail, in my opinion, is because they do not have a foundation in sales. But sales is the foundation of business. There is no product without revenue coming in. So that really laid the foundation for what came after that. And so I ended up creating a company that launches apps after that, a growth hacking firm. And then over the course of the next 6 years, I launched over 150 of them with that company. And that's how I ended up working with TikTok and launching them in 2019 in UK, USA, and Brazil. And so I got some good case studies and experiences out of that. And then I took another swing and built another tech startup, became the CEO of a company called HeyPal. And HeyPal we raised $9 million for. Reverse merger, took it public, and then had another great experience there. Got to 1 million users, but then the markets tanked after that. Tech markets tanked, and it became hard to get liquidity at the time. So I've done the bootstrapped route, I've done the capital raising route, and the one connective tissue between all the experiences is that sales is always the most important part of the business. We can never forget that, and every time we do, business starts to suffer.
You hadn't worked out the sales, right? And I made my first $1 million knocking on doors, building direct sales teams. So we don't wait for things to happen. We make things happen. We don't, there was no running ads. It was, let's go to a neighborhood and make things happen. And now I'm doing it business to business. It's funny how, because of all of the noise with ads and choices with whether it's ChatGPT, you're searching for stuff, or Google, whatever platform you're searching on, and or even if you're in social and all the different mediums of social, it's become a lot of noise. So, what's working for us is we're just going cold. We do research. So it's called cold calling 2.0. We research the company. We find out about who's there, but straight in, hey, we're here to talk to your IT about your security and everything. And, we just get in the door and, we know who we're looking for. So the cold calling 2.0 with a little bit of research generates more leads than our SDRs. Is that crazy?
It's incredible. It's actually cheaper to get customers through direct mail. So flyers in the mail marketing, it's cheaper to do that than Facebook ads these days. When you look at it, the economics of it, and most often it's going to be more profitable. So you're totally right that it's mostly clutter these days. But when there's clutter, it doesn't mean there's not a chance to stick out. You just really have to put a stake in the ground and be unique. And when I meet founders, we've launched 300 plus of these startups at this point. The one connective tissue among most of them that I see really commonly is they don't care about sales. They don't care about monetization. They don't care about pricing and packaging strategy. They're focused on creating a product that, they're thinking about it like a lottery where, hey, I'm going to make this viral product and post it online and we're all going to get rich. And I'm going to get a bunch of investment and millions of users. And then it doesn't happen. And then they end up on my doorstep. And so what I tell them is you guys got to think about these 4 phases of the business. The product, which is phase 1, marketing, identifying the ideal customer profile, who you're going to sell to in phase 2, sales or monetization in phase 3, and then virality in phase 4. So we do virality actually last in the app launch process, and then we move to cap raising. So the reason I think most of these startups really never have a good chance at bat, and the main reason why I lost that deal with Kevin Hart is because I couldn't sustain the business because I wasn't monetizing my users. I have 46,000 users, and I was literally making like $1,000 in revenue off of that per month. But now if imagine I had, converted 10% of those to paying customers at, let's just say $20 a month, you're talking about, $18,000 in revenue. That would have sustained the business. I could have continued and probably finished off the deal with Kevin. So that's the main thing that people miss. They don't think about monetization early on. They don't optimize their product around something that's valuable enough that the customer would actually pay for it, right? They think that sales is bad for some reason because, Airbnb and Facebook and all these platforms didn't focus on sales early on. So I'm really trying to correct that, what I call like the lottery mindset among founders. They don't take it seriously. And when I come in and push them to, hey guys, let's start making some money on these users. You're spending $5,000 a month acquiring users for your platform. Are we just going to flush that down the toilet? Or you actually want to make some money on this? You want to actually sustain this business? Plus the investors care about the economics. They want to know customer acquisition costs, average revenue per user, and LTV. If those are not established, investors these days, long gone are the days of the lottery era of tech. Tech is a 20-year-old field now. Like the market's changed. In 2021, when the markets tanked, investors all started looking, I'm talking about institutional investors, all started looking at cash flow. They don't want to be wasting their time with pre-revenue companies that when they got a startup that, let's just say the sales machine acquiring customers for $200 and making $2,000 off that customer, which investment do you think they're going to take, right?
Exactly. I think people drink their own Kool-Aid, number one. Well, I know they do. Even I have before drank my own Kool-Aid, assuming I know what people want when in actuality, that's not what they need. And, people pay for what they want, but they stay for what they need. Tim Grover, Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant's coach, like their fitness coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a legend, a Dwayne Wade, like working with the best of the best and then helping them become elite. And he always says, so many people are chasing greatness that they haven't even got good at being good, right? Right out the gate, if your product is not good enough, you need to begin again to win. Because ultimately, if the product's not good and it doesn't solve a big enough problem for a specific ICP, right? And when I got into this thing, I didn't even know what an ideal customer profile was. I just knew I could solve big enterprise level sales problems with technology. And, my own app, if you want to call it an app, but it's a web app. Essentially, when we went out the gate, I assumed to everybody would want a direct sales app. But most of those big companies that supply product with independent distributors, they're independent distributors and they don't want to pay for them for the usage. So guess what? $1,000,000 in, because I don't play small. $1,000,000 in. It didn't work. I was wrong, but it was my $1,000,000. So no one got hurt. My ego got hurt a bit, but it was my $1,000,000, right? And a lot of people won along the way. Never missed a paycheck. Make sense? I messed up. That's a fact. I messed up, dude, because I had no idea what arena. I was pivoting into a different arena from direct selling, consumer goods, skincare, car care into software. And I tell you, it was a checkup from the neck up. And so when I hear you say that, yeah, a lot of people are chasing that shiny thing, but they're not even good at getting good. So like I've started over and my sales team, we're just getting good at being really good. You know what I mean? That. So I love the direct mail stuff. I love doing stuff that's out of the box. I love doing giftology. So I break a pattern unlike anybody else. We're just different. We don't have a claim to fame of being better. You know, different is better than better. And now there's so much competition, especially with AI, and AI is good, but it's just a co-pilot, right? Essentially, where do you think most entrepreneurs, I mean, you've worked with 300 tech founders. Where do most of them lose the plot?
Well, let me pick up where you left off on AI, because AI started as a major, like a Swiss Army knife that could be used to solve all these problems really quickly. But then people started outsourcing their brain to AI. And then what started coming out of it was AI slop. So I see a lot of apps, and there's this huge influx of AI built apps that are coming to us now, which has been great, but their app store listing is written with AI. Their website is written and designed by AI. And it all just becomes this lukewarm, average, AI slop. That's the only way I can put it. And then it shows, and then people distrust it. This is why your in-person stuff is working better and better, because there's more and more AI slop out there. And because people never got good at being good, like you're saying, they never practiced copywriting. They never learned anything about web design. They never actually learned about user experience. So how could they build a good app? Well, they outsource it to AI, and AI does that thinking for them. But the thing about AI, it's this amalgamation, a blending of a huge body of data. By nature, it's going to be watered down, right? In order to make the content that comes out of it relevant for a lot of people, meaning it's going to have a less specific audience profile or ICP, like we're talking about, AI essentially just waters stuff down. So this is kind of the reality check. Put up $1 million of your own dollars, and I wouldn't even say lost it. You learn from it. It was an investment in your own personal development and your own development of the company. But first of all, most people are not willing to take that kind of swing. But they don't understand that on the other side of that lies $10 million. As Hormozy says, if you want to make 100 grand, you got to risk 10K. If you want to make $1 million, you got to swing with 100K. If you want to make 10 million, you got to swing $1 million. And so those kind of experiences are so formative. They basically teach you the good that you didn't learn initially. Now, I'm not saying everybody has to go and learn everything about user experience to build an app, but understand and be a sponge, because when you get into this space, you're going to get a lot of doors slammed in your face early on. And if you're nervous about charging for the product, that probably means the product's not worth paying for. If the company's not making revenue, well, then you haven't been selling, and you haven't been thinking about, hey, is there a way to sell this as a 12-month PIF, a 6-month PIF? Should I go to enterprise to get some cash flow while I'm building the B2C version out? They just don't think about these things because they don't know to. And as my dad always said, like, master the basics. I think it was a Bruce Lee quote or something like that. Like, just focus on mastering the basics. And I really love that you say that, because with sales, it is a very basic process. But when you master that, you get so good at the master level stuff. That is what creates a master, is mastering the basics in sales, in my opinion. Most people who are starting apps these days, because they can make it with a single prompt on Lovable or Replit, they're not masters of anything. They don't even know the basics. And so I really encourage people to embrace the learning experience that's going to come from it, and then not get deflated when, a large amount of money is on the line and you've learned with that money. You've lost a lot of money on it. But that is initiation. That's what you have to understand. You get into software to be swinging for a home run business. You're talking about an app that can be built once and 1 million different people can use it. Massive leverage. But there's a barrier to entry. They just don't know what it is. And they're going to find out what it is, just like you did. but you have to stick through it and keep on punching until you break the glass and get through to the other side. And then on the other side, you're in your position where you look back and you're grateful for the experience, and then you can apply all of the, not only the learnings that you have, but now your sales skills are put to much better use.
Yeah, it's a whole different psychology and a different methodology now in technology. So, you pointed out something that was good, and so I got a couple follow-ups on that. One is there's a lot of great apps out there developed by AI, but most of them are junk. Name one enterprise level app that was built by AI.
Can't name one. And you know what? I actually tried building one and I showed it to my team. It's awesome. It's a portal for us and our startups to interface with each other. So think about like communication, data dashboard, reporting, things like that. And it all looks sexy as hell. Like I showed it to somebody, they're thrilled. But when we actually started inserting clients into the system and integrating their project management platforms, their high level, things like that, none of it worked. And so now we, of course, are hiring a developer. I literally set out his Q1 goal today. Your job is to make this app actually work because, frankly, it doesn't work right now and it was built by AI. And I spent a lot of time going back and forth, debugging it and stuff like that. Again, but it's because I didn't understand the basics of engineering. I don't understand how to fix that. Right?
You're not alone, man. You're not alone. So see ya, and I wouldn't want to be ya. No, that's what happens. People think that AI can do everything, and especially whether it's Replit, Lovable, whether you're using Claude, ChatGPT, whatever platform you're using, it still cannot build enterprise level. It doesn't connect the dots, and it always tells you you're right.
That's the other problem.
If someone is always telling you you're right, something's wrong. Because you're not always right. I'm not always right. And that's
but you don't know what's wrong. That's the issue. You don't know what's wrong.
Until you plug in the data and you start getting, 100 users playing with the app, you realize, wow, this breaks. And wow, it's not working. Right. But it is sexy. Boy, it's sexy.
Yeah.
And the outcome we want to create is even sexier, right? I love AI. It's a great co-pilot. Like we have agents built into our system. We offer business intelligence at the highest level, operational intelligence for the mid-level management. So we cover the C-suite. We got the mid-level managers running the business. And then we have what I call field sales intelligence with the mobile app. And it's everything is pushing buttons. We just push buttons because no one wants to admire the tech. Nobody cares. But that CEO wants to know, okay, I got 1,000 people out in the field. I want to know the average time he spends at every business. I want to know every transaction happened in there. I want to know the conversation. So we just turn on the note taker, let the note taker record the audio. And then we have an agent that literally takes the notes for the salesperson. So my salesperson's not an admin. And then get this. We have an evaluator. Did they follow a process? Because that salesperson, he's only as good as the process he follows. Because if he's winging it, you're not going to win it consistently. And then after that, we have another evaluator that can evaluate all 100 salespeople. Did they follow the process? And who are the best of the best? Okay, great. We extract those best practices and then we assign training based on those best practices to the bottom 80%. Yeah. And then, so you get a courseware and everybody gets notified. You got complete accountability. When the guy goes to the toilet because he checks in, he checks out. So like this just has to be thought out, right? It's the thinking out process. That's the really hard work. But like me, I'm a field warrior, dude. A field warrior, been in the field in many countries around the world, knocking on doors. So there's not a lot of bullshitting you can do with me if you're a salesperson, because I am one. And I've been out there, boots on the ground, right? And so when we go into companies, we'll literally hit the field. Let me go with your guys. Let me go with your guys.
Right.
So that's where I think, so it's not hypothetical. It's boots on the ground. Let's figure out what's working, what's not working, and what we can automate. Because most salespeople waste 30 to 40% of their time on unnecessary tasks. You know what I mean? So I would really love to dig into what you do and how you do it, because I'm an admirer, right? I'm not a big time fan of anything but NFL football, but I'm a total admirer of what you've how you guarantee people 10,000 users with your mastermind, with your blueprint, right? And they can literally sign up for an accelerator after they go through your resources, which is admirable because it says, hey, I'm going to put, I've done the work and here's how you guys can start out. So I love that. How did you get to where you are now as far as guaranteeing 10,000 users and putting people in front of investors?
Well, I just want to acknowledge something that you said real quick about how AI has enabled your field reps to not do admin work. That is incredibly valuable. When I got my admin time back, when I got an EA, I got way more productive. Second, that's the kind of stuff that I don't think they need to like really master. If the admin's done for you, spend your time in that revenue generating tasks. I totally agree with that. I love that about the sales machine. I really want to check out the software too. But I got into this because I kept seeing founders making the same mistakes that I was, which was like not monetizing it, having this dream of raising, 10 million bucks and not understanding the basics of how to get that done. And then, watching these founders, get knocked around, get slapped in the face by business and life while they're trying to build. But the core thing that they're almost always missing is the sales component. So when we go through and launch an app, having done 300 of these, I just looked at the data and I said, what's the average number of users that one of our launches get? It was actually 100,000 users. But, when you're talking about somebody who's new to the game, 100K is a little intimidating. So they actually responded better to 10K. We split tested it. We ran ads with 1 million users guaranteed, 100,000 and then 10,000, and 10K performed the best. So that's what we made our promise. So we just set a benchmark below our historical performance, and we just knew, hey, if these guys are open-minded and let us run our process, we can get them the results. But the key thing is that they have to be open-minded because, again, you're going to get this wash of information that's, maybe not, it's going to be novel, but maybe not pleasant information. For example, in my own product, I had spent about $10,000 building a social feed for my first fitness app, only to find out users didn't use it, wasn't critical to the core experience. So I ended up having to divest it and spend another $3,000. So if I can prevent somebody from making that same mistake, wasted $13,000 and a ton of effort and marketing and all this stuff, but that's not what they want to hear, right? So I always try to level set with them that look at this as an opportunity where you're like essentially coaching yourself through gathering information. So we start with the product, making sure out of 100 downloads, over 50% are turning into active users. Most apps, like 20%, are actually turning into active users. So we really focus on the user onboarding in the beginning. We
What percentage?
Problem, like most apps that I look at come in at about a 20% activation rate. And we work to get that up to about 80%, somewhere between 50 and 80%. Because the model cannot be profitable if you're losing 80% of your customers at the door. Like 80% of people are dropping off before they even start using the app. You got a lot of wasted talent there, right? A lot of wasted ad dollars marketing. So we structure the onboarding, and really an ideal onboarding isn't just like showing them what to do. It's actually doing it with them. So in the onboarding, we hook their attention with a punchy hook statement, a value prop. And then we move to ask them what brings you here today, which is the problem. Say, great, we can solve that with X, Y, and Z features. And then we move to a call to action. So it goes hook, problem, solution, call to action. And then on that call to action screen, it says, okay, cool. The program that's going to be best for you is our Base Plus program, which is a 7-day free trial. And then, rolls $10 a month or whatever. And then we also include some social proof on there. And if they take the free trial, then we encourage them to invite a friend. And the whole reason for this is all based around sales psychology. We get them excited with the hook. We bring them down in the trenches to diagnose their problem. It's like the doctor. We present a solution to the problem, and then they're starting to get excited. And then after that, we make a call to action like, hey, go ahead and get started right now. So we're taking advantage of when their emotions are highest and after we've already solved their problems. So in a lot of cases, we can get people to sign up and pay in the first 30 seconds of opening the app versus before, which is like 80% were just like not even opening the app again. So we always focus on augmenting the onboarding experience to be immersive and to tell the story, right? Tell the story of the app, get them compelled, and then get them to sign up for a free trial. The whole idea is like, look, I already solved your problem. Now just try the free trial, give it a few days, make sure it works as you wanted it to, and then boom, now we got paying customers. The first phase is always getting the product to convert to active users. And then after that, in the marketing phase, we do this 3 rounds of split testing process so that we can figure out who's their ideal customer profile. So we'll take one ad graphic, put 10 different messages on it. So 10 variations of an ad. So for Sales Machine, it could be save 80% of your reps' time in the field, or cut admin by 80%, or get optics on your whole sales operation at the tap of a finger. So we come up with a bunch of hooks like that, and we run that as an ad campaign, 10 different ads, and everything looks the same in the campaign except the message. Because what we're trying to figure out is which of these messages is moving the needle. Usually like 20% of the 10 ads will be performers. And a lot of times they will actually get customers in that first run. And so then we know, okay, these are the 2 messages out of the 10 that work. 80% are not working. Like we see the 80-20 in every part of this process. And then when we figure out what messages are resonating, let's just say it's saving admin time and, getting more booked calls per rep or something like that. Then we take that messaging to the next round and we'll split test age group, gender, locations, personal interests. And eventually we'll land at like a male, 25 to 45 years old who makes over 100K a year and lives in a tier 2 city. And then when we understand that, then we can start making content for their app launch that really relates to that target audience. And so we identify the ideal customer profile in that phase 2 so that they know who they're going to make money on. Because at that point, they'll have seen how much revenue is coming in from these various audiences, like boomers versus Gen Zs, or people in big cities versus medium cities. At the end of that, figure out that ICP. That's a super valuable thing. And then after that, we move to monetizing that ICP. That's phase 3, the sales process. In the sales process, we split test different price points, right? $20 a month, two landing pages, 1,000 users to each, $20 a month, $30 a month. Which one has a better net profit? Volume of customers, the earnings per click essentially. And so we do some split testing, figure out the right price point. And at this point, remember, we know who our ideal customer profile is really articulately because we tested it and we got, data around it. And so from there, we can know how much we can charge them, especially, it's kind of like riches in the niches. If you know, hey, I'm selling to SaaS founders who have raised $1 million, I know exactly what their budget tolerances are. I know what their pain points are. And so that's where we really start optimizing the revenue around them. Because again, if I'm selling to an enterprise sales team, I can probably charge, $200 a month instead of $20 a month. So we really focus on getting more revenue out of the app and out of those users. And then after that, we move to the virality stage. And that's where we set up a referral engine on the front end. So think like affiliates on YouTube. So they only get paid when they actually send you customers. And then on the back end, we have the users. We have a program to convert everyday users into power users and then into ambassadors. So basically imagine like I'm a customer and I want to share Sales Machine with one of my friends. If they sign up, I get a month free. So we set up an incentive program like that so that everybody's referring their friends and everybody's earning credits. And then when all of those 4 components of the business are working, you got the product pumping out, you got the ideal customer profile, you got the Sales Machine working, and you've got virality. Come on, what investor's going to say no to that? They know, hey, I put $1 into this machine, I get $2 out reliably, and sky's the limit, right? Like it's just a math equation for the investors at that point. So that's the process we run for these startups. And frankly, a lot of them, they get excited about that. But when it comes time to actually do the work, they need a lot of handholding because not all this stuff's easy, right? Business is not easy. It may be simple, but it's not easy. And so I really try to encourage them through these challenges. Speaking from your own experience, right? You sacrificed $1 million to learn that lesson. And a lot of people don't have the stomach for something like that. And so I really try to guide them along and reassure them, because if it was hard for somebody else and you can make it through that difficult, then if you get to the other side, the reward's bigger, right? Bigger the barrier to entry, the bigger the payout on the back end.
Yeah. And yeah, it definitely. And so I don't dig assuming, but based on what I'm hearing from you, a lot of the apps that you or app founders you work with, are they primarily B2?
Primarily B2C, yes, but we do B2B launches. Usually it has to do, we're actually in the middle of rolling out a B2B program for the high ticket stuff. Right now we only do low ticket. So whether it's B2B or B2C doesn't matter, but usually about 80% are B2C. But when it comes to B2B, it's a very different, when you're doing high ticket sales, it's a very different model because, you're doing outbounding and you're doing account-based, marketing. And again, it's a skill set, right? That's something people get a master's degree in kind of thing in life, maybe not in university, but B2B sales in SaaS can be a super rewarding business because again, you can sell 6, 12-month PIFs. You can do a lot of cash collected up front on that. And then you can fund the whole business.
Yeah. Investors. So a client for me starts out at, as an example, anywhere between $10,000 a year, $20,000 a year. We signed a client for $200,000 a year.
Wow.
and they're not signing up for a freemium model. So the freemium model in B2B SaaS, you need tens of thousands of users just to have a break even point and or get any kind of traction whatsoever. So tell me about your top two case studies where you just killed it.
Well, I mean, my favorite case study is TikTok. I mean, that was the funnest, craziest campaign I've ever worked on. So I'll tell the story of that. We got an email that was literally in Chinese, and we're like, wow, this is sketch, but saw the name ByteDance in the email, the from email. So I looked up ByteDance and then found out that it owns TikTok. Of course, went through the sales process, ended up closing a deal for $225,000 a month for the pilot for just the first month. They basically asked us to do a 6-month launch in 1 month, which meant like, I don't know, think about the setup for something like that. Usually it's like 2 to 3 weeks of setup. Basically, I had to set it up in like a few days. So anyway, we got this amazing opportunity to work with TikTok, and they wanted 2,500 users per month. And I was like, oh yeah, I've launched a bunch of apps before. This should be no problem. And so we got into it. And by the way, in the process, they were like, hey, you have to get $1 million of liability coverage. You have to sign all of this, huge packet of contracts. I had no idea what I was getting myself in and the kind of liability that I was creating by doing that. But because I was young and dumb, I, thankfully didn't know better. These days, I would have been like, wow, that's way too risky. But yeah, we recruited 100 influencers in 2 weeks. And we had the influencers start posting in about week 3. And we were getting like, a handful of downloads, literally like 10 here, 5 there. And we're just like racking our minds, like, how is this not getting users? So we talked to them and they're like, oh yeah, we've already worked with most of those influencers. And so their audiences were saturated already. And I was like, you don't think you could have like told us that before we just built this huge, like multi-6-figure campaign around it? By the way, I put up $50,000 of my own money in that time because I was waiting for my first payment from them. And so I was basically, I was just starting the business. And so I didn't really have money to be throwing around like that. And, at one point I had $27 in my account in this engagement. And on the other side of a win is like $200,000. But here I am with like 400 downloads. It's like day 30 of the campaign. And I have no idea how I'm going to pull this off. So pulled an all-nighter, found a piece of software that sends direct messages from the Instagram profiles of the influencers. And thankfully, we had been logged into all of those accounts because we were posting from them. And so we used the direct messaging automation, and we did a pilot of like 500 messages, went to sleep. And the next day we had like 300 downloads on like 500 messages sent. And we're like, what? So it was like performing really highly. And so we sent out 10,000 more, got like 7,000 more downloads, and we had cracked the code. We basically had, just imagine Tony Robbins shoot you a DM like, hey, John, I just posted a new video. It's going viral on this new platform called TikTok. If you want to watch it, tap here. And so the role models or the influencers were sending messages to all their fans, and the fans were going crazy for it because of the credibility and the specialness. And so we went to TikTok and we're like, hey guys, we cracked the code. Like, do we have the green light to run this campaign up? And they're like, yeah, do it right away. At this point, we were at like day 35. We were already late. We had asked for an extension. So we shot out 30,000 more direct messages, ended up getting to 22,500 users by about day 35. And the rest is history. I mean, we ended up working with them for 2 more years after that, ran the same strategy in Brazil, in United Kingdom, and then did an expansion plan to all these places, Southeast Asia, like Russia, Ireland, Italy, crazy places, just using the DM strategy. Eventually we pulled in Telegram and WhatsApp and some other platforms, but it was a real wild ride. And if I hadn't basically gone broke in the process and taken that big swing, that huge risk, I wouldn't have had that payoff. And I think a lot of founders hearing this are going to experience a feeling like that at some point where they're like, fuck, it's over. But like the ones who win, point their nose to the wind and just like power through it.
Yeah, because it's not easy, man. And I have, respect, total respect, man. And congratulations on you making it through, right? So tell me about an app that you worked with where you prejudged, like, what are they thinking? And then it turned out that it became amazing. Do you have any any founders like that?
Well, yeah. And I definitely have startups that we have launched that didn't do well. And I think there's a lot to learn from those ones as well. But some of the ones that I underestimated, I think the one that I underestimated the most was a company called Zinnia. And they think of like Netflix for dementia patients. And basically it's like meditation, mindfulness, music, that kind of thing, where older folks can watch it in their nursing homes. And I was like, how much buying power does this audience have? These people are on fixed income, And we launched it, and that was like one of the most profitable campaigns that we ever launched. Like, they were getting paid customers. Like 80% of people were buying the annual plan, so there a lot of cash collected up front. And yeah, it was just a little bit unexpected. I was pleasantly surprised. But there were part of what did well was that the nursing homes were buying it and they were giving it to all of their patients. And that's a massive value for them. They pay $70 for a year of subscription. They can probably post it across all the TVs in the nursing homes. So there was like a massive value lever in that regard. And so they got a lot of signups that way, but also everyday people were signing up too. $7 a month. Can't really go wrong with that.
Yeah. So how do you picture this? You said you're getting ready to jump into the B2B arena. Have you worked with any B2B companies yet?
Yeah. We've launched a lot of them. We've done a lot of internal pilots. We'll do it like as a favor for our client, or, include them in a pilot at no cost so that we can get the experience. And what we found is this: you need inbound and outbound. Outbound takes a lot longer to crack the code, and the sales process is harder because when you're reaching out to somebody, it's a push type of marketing, but you have to flip the table and make it a pull, right? You have to say, I want you, and then you have to convince them, now you want me. So that dynamic is a little difficult for a lot of people to manage, unless, of course, they've mastered the basics of sales, and you can switch that dynamic. But I think it's really critical. So usually what we do is we'll build an outbound list of people we're going to hit up on LinkedIn and email. Let's just say, dream 100 clients that they want to work with, and maybe 5 contacts at each. So let's just say a contact list of like 500 people. We upload that to Facebook ads. And so we're running awareness ads that are educating them on, let's just use Sales Machine as an example. We're running demo videos, customer testimonials, how it works type of videos on the ads. And then meanwhile, that same audience, because we're targeting the same people, we're hitting them up on email and on LinkedIn. So when they see our brand, they may already know about it. They may already be educated on how the product works. So when a rep reaches out, it's essentially a warm prospect. And so that's like the acquisition side of the puzzle. We also will run, lead generation ads, because those inbound leads, nothing really beats those inbound leads. And you never know who's going to come in the door. Same thing with our business. Like, TikTok walks in the door one day. Like, I could have never predicted that, right? That's just like almost luck, in my opinion. So it's really important to have some inbound going on. Those deals are also easier to close because, again, the customer's knocking on your door, not vice versa. So we usually set up an inbound and outbound, I would say like a yin and a yang type of acquisition platform for it. And then we have a video demo. So send them through a little funnel, let them watch like a how-to video on how to work the software. And then we have a book an appointment with salespeople. But I think the sales process is really, really critical when you're selling SaaS, because you're talking about a new technology that somebody has to figure out. So the education and cultivation is really critical on those leads. But again, there's so much cash to be collected there. You make a platform like Sales Machine, you could sell 1,000 seats at $20 a month, be making $20,000 a month on, a software, and you can sell it, 3, 6, 12 months in advance, give them a little 20% discount or something, and collect $200,000. And so in my opinion, the B2B SaaS model is still incredibly relevant. People say SaaS is dead. It's not dead. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to change shapes.
Those people are dead. Those people are idiots.
You're dead inside, buddy.
No, you're an idiot. You have no idea. It's just a lot more difficult because the freemium model, you're not pitching one-on-one. You're one-on-many. And as an example, just when you thought you had a deal when you're not talking to one stakeholder, you're talking to several, and several people's jobs are on the line. Mm-hmm. You've got to go into their world, because if that guy recommends it, then the sales leader recommends it, and the VP of sales says yes, and they've invested $200,000. It doesn't work. The CEO is going to want heads.
Yeah.
He's going to want your head because you invested $200,000. So, and by the way, you got those 4 decision makers, right? That put it in front of the CEO. And just when you thought you got the deal, let me see ChatGPT and Claude handle this. First of all, you don't just read the room. You got to read the man individually and collectively. And just when you close the CEO, and I've done it and I've been there, and they said, all right, we're good. Let's get her done. Then they send you to procurement. And then procurement wants to see your financials, your bank statements. They want to see your SEC documents. They want to see who are you legit or not. And you've got to close another entity. But ultimately, you got to know that their role is to find out what's wrong and or to get savings for the company. And so you got to pad that in there so that you give them a discount so that they're the hero of the story. Procurement, these back office bean counters. Right? So this is, it's one thing having a freemium model, but when we talk, I'm always in an idea guy, and a hook for me is don't pay for your CRM. That's a hook. Don't pay for your CRM and something that doesn't work. Don't pay for it. That's going to be a hook I'm going to try out.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't waste your money. Don't pay for your CRM. Don't waste money on a proof of concepts. Make sure that you get one that works. So I like that. And I like that freemium model, but it's very challenging to do in B2B. I'm open because, I'll test anything, literally. I'm open to that. So I just want to be relevant to all of the listeners out there to see that we can cross-pollinate the value you're bringing, and it can definitely work. It's just you're dealing with multiple people in the B2B space. They're not just downloading an app on your iPhone, right? We're talking about enterprise level software, just like AI built software. You're not going enterprise. My friend built a CRM in a weekend. He's like, man, you don't need to buy this. You don't need to buy that. Look what I did. Yeah. Upload 100 users and then get back to me. And I talked to him a couple of weeks later. I'm like, how's it going? Yeah, it didn't work. Yeah, exactly, dude. So, it's not there yet. Now, it's not that it won't get there with Replit and Lovable, but it's not getting there for years. And then you got data privacy, and you've got all of the security to build in for these enterprise level software. It's a whole different ballgame. Different ballgame, but it can definitely work with what you're doing. It's just going to take a lot of different layers to make that accelerator work for B2B, but I see that it can. And it's so funny you talk about it's got to be inbound, outbound. So Aaron Ross wrote Predictable Revenue and grew Salesforce to the first $100 million. Outbound 2.0 is what he called it. You do your research first. You find out the people first, but it's called cold calling 2.0. Yes.
Yeah.
And so he's the genius, and he's been on the podcast, right? He's the genius behind that. Now, long story short, that's Salesforce. And what's their ICP?
Enterprise
Laugh out loud.
Brands, I guess, right?
They're just good for everybody, right? Because it doesn't matter if you have a Salesforce, right? You can, Salesforce is basically just a CRM, trackable CRM thing. They got some AI, but believe me, clunky. But bottom line is he found a methodology that worked outbound. Here comes Mark Rober's HubSpot. And by the way, Salesforce invested in HubSpot initially because they were doing marketing and inbound marketing campaigns. And then they decided they're going to get in the CRM world, and they dropped them like they're hot because now they're a competitor, right? So then Salesforce was going to sell a similar product for like $1. So HubSpot was screwed, right? So how are they going to make money if Salesforce drops services to like $1, right? So HubSpot did it completely differently. They did all inbound marketing, no outbound. And they just did a lot of blogging and a lot of outreach with Chet Holmes style. The ultimate sales machine, by the way, is information-based marketing, right? And then they jumped on that bandwagon, and Mark Roberge brought them to the first 10,000 customers, all inbound. Imagine they're all calling you up and saying, hey, it's really simple. It's really simple. Jonathan, we just want to sign up. All inbound, right? Like they're closed even before they get to the salesperson. So that's Mark Roberge. And the inbound and outbound, go ahead.
I was just going to say, you're bringing up something that's so critical. There is no need to do cold calling. You can pre-qualify an audience list. You can have their buying signals. Doing outbound actually gets better qualification in my experience because you're choosing it rather than qualifying what comes in. So I actually love outbound for that. And then you got this yin and yang of inbound and outbound. You bring in the information component, do what's called tornado, which is basically a bunch of ads that are just like blasting this one audience with educational resources. In our experience, everybody who watches the 1 hour free masterclass that we have on getting to 1 million users, the close rate's 80% on people who watch that 1 hour video. And it's low production. It's done on Loom. So like, it's all just value. I was just smashing them with value, no pitch. So I just want to reiterate to everybody listening what John's saying about nurturing these audiences and giving them content and giving them value and not asking anything in return. That's what creates goodwill in them. And then eventually they find their way back to your doorstep because they're like, hey, this company's got goodwill. They're out here doing things that are just genuinely helping me. And I want to take it to the next level.
Yeah. And so your freemium would become a proof, what we call in the B2B world, a proof of concept. So a proof of concept, the way we built the sales machine in actuality, a bad word when you're talking to enterprise level clients is it's customizable because they know customizable, that's 50 grand starting.
Yep.
That
Service
starts
line.
at 50 grand, right? Customizable. What's it going to cost me? 100 grand. Yeah. And Salesforce, if you're 50 users, customizable, you're looking at 150 grand a year.
Ugh.
I love that. I love making 150 grand, but my psychology when I talk to an enterprise level company, because in the absence of value, it always comes down to price. So I want to know the economic value. How much are you going to earn from this? And how much am I going to save you from this? And how much is it costing you right now? Because when we get to the pricing conversation, okay, John, this sounds great. You're going to save me a couple $100 grand here. You're going to save my people 30% time. I'm going to make another $5 million. What's it going to cost? Well, in actuality, that's the uniqueness. It pays for itself. You shouldn't be paying for this. Would you be open to me showing you how it pays for itself? I'll walk you through it because you shouldn't be paying. You should be earning. So we can do a proof of concept. So when we built a sales machine, it's not just hardwired our process. In actuality, it's configurable to yours. Show me your process. I'll configure the system to follow your process, to follow your salespeople. So you save money. This, you shouldn't be paying anything. You should be earning. So that freemium model, and I'm connecting the dots with what I've done and what you're doing, because that's exactly for my scale, what we're doing now with the AI. And we're building version 3.0, and what's selling is our version 2, because the first version, that was the $1 million. That one went into the trash can. The second one, paying for itself, right? Another $1 million. Now I don't have to spend $1 million. But the third one is built with AI, completely configurable, where I'm putting that proof of concept will be essentially don't pay for your proof of concept. Don't pay for your CRM. Pay for something that's going to give you a result. So I love that. I can connect the dots. I call it cross-pollination, right? We cross-pollinate methodologies that work in other industries and or other models, but then you tweak it and you adjust it to work with the B2B model, and Steve Jobs did this, right? The wheel on the old iPods. Yeah, that's from Bang & Olufsen. They just didn't patent it. He went and patented it and put it on the iPods, right? The mouse, that's from Xerox, right? Like a lot of the things, technology was never patented. Steve Jobs like, wow, they do it better than anybody. Let's make the personal computer the easiest thing to use in the world, right? The stylus, he goes, look, you were born with one. And how did he sell? 10,000 songs in your pocket. He didn't talk about the phone. He didn't talk about the technology. He talked about the 10,000 songs in your pocket. That's it. Right? So I think a lot of the time academics complicate things. They want to justify that college degree, but they haven't simplified things to how do I make it the user's life easy? Because salespeople, they just need to be having conversations and showing companies not only how to solve their problems, but what's the economic value so that the systems pay for themselves. So that's my whole psychology. Sales is a service. I'm here to help. And I love helping people. And that's why I love doing sales. It's like you're putting a puzzle together And when you're done with that puzzle, it's beautiful because your client wins and you did that. That's how I see sales. It's so much fun. It's so much fun, right? So I would love to see how you create an accelerator for these B2B companies, right? And I'd love to help you however I can. Just sharing my experience because I love what you do. It's helping people that really need help at the end of the day. And people need help. Sometimes it's just one idea, one relationship, one opportunity to change the game, Like I always talk about the sales machine. We have game changer night. And the bottom line is the reason why we're here is to change the game. Don't hate the player. Don't hate the game. Change the game. We find a way to do something differently than everybody else is doing it and make a difference in people's and organizations' lives. That's what we do. And nobody cares about our technology. They care about how we can make it change their game. Give them a sales machine for their business. So I'm not even pitching right now. It's just what I believe in. It's what I believe in 100%, helping people. You know what I mean?
If people were more open to being helped, a lot more people would be helped. There's a book called Range that talks about people coming from different verticals, different skill sets, and adding to the compound effect of let's just say referencing B2B for B2C reasons. That is the crux of making a startup succeed, is to constantly have your worldview broken, and then you put it back together with the pieces that are still relevant. And John is the one who is administering that by putting those puzzle pieces together. But in the first place, somebody has to be willing to break the puzzle that they currently have. And so I really encourage anyone listening to think about, like, what can I learn from this person? What blind spot are they casting a light on for me? Because these two skill sets, like whether you're an app founder and you want to scale up, understanding the principles of sales is going to make your marketing perform better, right? If you're in B2B SaaS, understanding how to acquire users, how to get inbound is going to be super valuable for your business. And this is something I challenge myself to regularly, like even coming on this podcast. This is a heavily sales oriented podcast, but I knew that it would add to my range. It would fill in gaps for me, and it already has. And I just feel so grateful for the information that I'm getting from you, because when you're talking about procurement and enterprise sales, most of the startups I'm working with are pre-enterprise. They're just selling to SMBs. But understanding that that's on the horizon, that's a new learning to me, because I haven't done enterprise sales at scale. I've done B2B sales, but not enterprise like that. So it's really valuable information, and just like taking it and converging it with my current knowledge base it's so valuable. So I'm really grateful for this conversation, John.
Yeah. And, and I love what you're doing. I mean, and you don't only just solve the problem of giving the people the methodology of going to market, getting to 10,000 users, then you take them to the next level. So it's not like you're one and done. Thanks. Right. So one and done, one night stand, we're done. You're definitely taking them to the next level where you're saying, okay, not only are we going to get you to market, we're going to get you to 10,000 customers. Then we're going to set you up for even more monetization or investors that will want to invest in you to scale. Once you get them to that point, so what is the key to literally getting the investors wanting to invest?
It's giving them the fundamentals. They have to have statistically significant data, right? Let's just say 10,000 users. They need thousands of units in order for the data to work from a micro scale to a macro scale. So the traction and the KPIs are critical. Also, the investors are looking at what's the customer acquisition cost, what's the lifetime value of a customer. They just need to know that. How do they evaluate the investment if they don't understand the basic economics of the business? And so that's what we do. We get them those two core things, which is the user base and the profitability under control. And then all of the mystery is gone for the investors, and it makes a very rational investment. And then it also makes it a rational investment for the founder to keep investing in, because he knows, hey, it takes me 3 months to get paid back, but my customers stay an average of 12 months. If I can dump some money into marketing, I'm buying myself, 12 months of revenue here. It just makes a lot of sense to me to think about it that way. And like yourself, this is something that it's almost like a form of self-love. I see all the mistakes that I made when I was a first-time founder, and I'm like, oh my God, if I could literally just insert one piece of knowledge back then, everything would have been completely different. And so that's why I get so much reward out of helping these founders who are in those stages and they're still making those same mistakes. Yeah, I just find it really rewarding to watch them, reassemble their puzzles and help them with it.
And what about that startup out there? Say they got, like you initially, you had 46,000 users, but you were earning nothing from those 46,000 users. Yet you had Kevin Hart essentially, but conflict of interest. You lost him, then you lost Mark Cuban because it was contingent. And this happens a lot. How important?
Mistakes doing a contingency. Should have never done that.
Yeah. And so, but how important is it for you to be earning money before you go look for money? Because as an example, literally, I cannot even count the amount of people that have pinged me, DM me on LinkedIn that want to invest in the sales machine. Like the first year, crickets. The second year, we got, a couple clients, but it's enterprise. You're talking a $20,000 client, a $10,000 client, but not any significant growth, no significant momentum. I didn't want money. I didn't want your money. It's my baby. I bootstrapped it. I'm earning over $1 million a year from my brick and mortar direct sales company. And I still have my direct sales company. You know why? Because it's a cash register and I'm changing people's lives. I literally pay it forward and my people have opportunity. So I love that. And, I pay it forward. And so I still have that, right? But essentially year 3 comes around, payroll's up to $50,000 a month. Right. And we're not bringing in 50 grand a month. So, they you gotta pay to play, baby. You want to enter the B2B world. I'm competing with Salesforce, HubSpot. We're talking big boys, dude. And guess what? In case you didn't know, they got more money than me. Right. So we have to do it different. We're not competing with them with ads. You know what I mean? We're doing it differently, whether it's, knocking on doors, going straight to the companies or SDR in it, right? We have to do things differently. But then year 3 comes around, we're generating a couple $100,000 in revenue. And then essentially people are reaching out. But the whole thing is, are you at $1 million ARR? They want to see that first $1 million ARR, or big money. They want 5 million ARR. And of course, lifetime value of a customer acquisition cost, the whole 9 yards. For people in that bucket, because I've been there. And thankfully, thank God, Yahweh, I didn't have to. I had properties and stuff that I could leverage to fund my thing, because I still haven't taken a single dollar from anybody. Good. Right? But in saying that, for people that don't have that leverage because they didn't build any kind of wealth, are investors going to touch anything like that if they're not generating positive revenue? The
short answer is yes. This is why the investors exist, because at the beginning of a business like what you're building, there's a lot of infrastructure. You're building the factory at the beginning, and it just takes raw hard costs to build that factory that's going to output those, Tesla Model 3s in the case of Elon. That is a fixed cost that's going to need to be built. And at the beginning of the business, it's the most difficult time. That's when the costs are really inflated, and then it gets more efficient, more profitable as time goes on. So investors know that, and that what I would call, like, when you're over a barrel with the revenue, you might be making great revenue, but still your payroll costs and stuff are high, because it's hard to grow a business on just the margin that the business makes. If the company's making 10% net margin a month, you're working, if you're making $100K a month, you're working with a $10K growth budget. You're not working with a multi-million-dollar growth budget. A lot of startups end up in that position, and that's why the investors are relevant. But ideally, in your case, we get an investor who's smart money, and he makes some introductions to some big companies, brings in some contract cash and some new customers, in addition to investing money in the business and, other network connections and, other smart money components that he adds to the story. So that model actually makes a lot of sense for investment, not so much for venture capital, but more for our angel investors and people who are like cash flow investors. investors. So the investors know that. They've watched the maturation of companies like this, and they know that happens. The same thing happens in e-commerce. You sell 100 grand in product next month, you're like, okay, cool. I want to sell 200K next month. That means I need to spend all 100 grand I made this month buying inventory for next month. And then they end up over this barrel. This exact same thing happens in e-commerce. So it's a tough situation, but once you get over that hump where the snowball is rolling, and then it starts accumulating and gets bigger and bigger, starts spitting off more cash, and eventually, of course, it's crushing its costs. But you have to get to that level, and that's very, very difficult. Between like year 2 and 5 are very, very difficult. And that's why the capital makes sense. But, in a lot of cases, I actually recommend that people don't go to venture investors, because venture investors are looking for offshoots, moonshots that are going to be multi-billion-dollar companies. And that means that like they're looking for crazy economics. It's a different kind of rigor. Whereas like angel investors or venture debt can work really well in that circumstance. So you basically use the money for the growth, and then you pay back a fixed percentage, and you don't dilute your cap table or lose equities. So I think venture debt is a tool that a lot of people don't utilize that effectively. Now, I'm also a big fan of just like business funding and stuff like that, because like, again, once you build the machine and it starts printing, everything else gets a lot easier. So I really encourage people to think about like alternative investment vehicles, because again, once you can just get the wheel turning and the momentum's building, obviously you got to stick with it and you got to have faith. But at the end of the day, I think it's a very common challenge, and it's very overcomable.
Yeah, and definitely, it's two different audiences, because you talked about Hermosi, and Hermosi's excellent. I mean, I went to Hermosi's thing in Vegas. Right. And he's an incubator. Yeah. And it's cool. It's great. It's nice. It's fun, but it's all about EBITDA completely. So what's your EBITDA? Right. Okay. Well, I'm pre-revenue. Well, not going to work. Or I'm not at the threshold of where we're making money. Not going to work. Right. Because EBITDA is not my model. Right. I'm a startup. A lot of startups are in that arena. Right. And, so
yeah,
it's just a completely different pitch. Yes or no?
Look, I don't recommend trying to grow tech startups all on your own cash. It's high risk. And like we talked about, the EBITDA is not enough to pay for growth. And so you have to bring in some big guns, or else, companies like Salesforce are going to offer your shit for $1 and you're out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I love your understanding, like it's just two different arenas that you're playing in, right? But yeah, if you risk all of your own money, there's huge risk. There's huge upside too, but at the same time, it's all about leverage, right?
Yeah, and if you take too big of a swing, let's just say you're in my position with my first startup, where I swung with $100,000, and then I only needed maybe like $30,000-$40,000 more of runway to get through a deal done, to get the profitability and stuff in place. But I didn't have it, right? And I didn't want to call on all of my contacts and stuff like that. I didn't want to drain all my brownie points. So, that's the other risk with using your own capital, is that if you run out, you have a hard stop. There's no backstops there. So yeah, after all these experiences, I'm the type who comes in like extra well-funded. Like I want to have way more than I need. So if I, launch an app, which, I'm in the process of building multiple apps, when I launch one, I'm going to get some real money to make it happen, or, allocate some real money. But I don't want to be in a position where I have a great opportunity and then I get stuck over a barrel and I simply, can't pay the next month bill. That's a very bad position to be in, because of course, all the years of work you put into building that company are at risk now of just completely evaporating.
Yeah. I love it. So tell me, Jonathan, where can people find you? And are you openly running masterminds, physical masterminds, or how do you work with startups and people who want to scale?
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me on, John. I'm eager to meet with every founder, and at least, if nothing else, give them some free resources that may, help them dodge a pothole that I stepped in when I was a founder. So they can follow me on Instagram. It's jmaxim. If you just shoot me a DM there, I have a 1-hour masterclass on scaling apps from 0 to 1 million users. So it goes over the whole roadmap, capital raising process. Just DM me the word training on Instagram, and I'll hook you up with that for free. No email required or anything. I'll just hook you up with that. And if they want to learn more about our company, viralappalaunch.com. At the end of the day, like, if nothing else, I've got a bunch of free resources because a lot of founders who are in the bootstrapping stage don't have capital. So just hit me up. I'm happy to direct you to the resource that's valuable. I've got like a playbook for raising capital that we give out. I've also got like goal setting playbooks, and then of course that 1 hour masterclass on scaling apps. So got a lot of tools, happy to, share them. And if ultimately somebody want to work with us, then we do have a lot of options for that as well.
Well, amen and amen. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan Maxim, if you want to go to 10,000 users, reach out. I mean, he's done it several times, over 300 companies, and take you to the next stage to talking to investors. Thanks for being on the show, Jonathan.
Awesome, John. Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
That's a wrap, folks. Thanks for joining me today. And if you got value from this episode, do me a favor, like, subscribe, and refer a friend. And if you want even more value, go to thesalesmachine.com, click on resources, and there's tons of resources there to increase profits and drive performance in your business. Right on, come on.